How's it, guys? This is Davey FPL and welcome back to the Deadline with Davey live stream. Now, guys, things are hotting up here, not only because it's an absolute scorcher today in SA, but because the deadline for the wildcard is fastly approaching. 30 minutes till that deadline. Make sure you get all those teams in. We're going to be going through my latest wildcard draft and hopefully my last one, because I can't tell you how stressful this past day has been. Contemplating players. I was comparing 4.3 defenders for some reason, but hopefully it's going to be a good game week overall, and that wild card can help us prepare for that nice free hit in game week 18 and bench boost hopefully in double game week 19. Just a quick update, if you haven't watched the team selection video, had a relatively good game week, finished on 69 points. I wanted to show that the game week rank was actually pretty high. I think that's one of the best weeks we've had. But fortunately, we still haven't cracked that top one more, but hopefully this game week is going to be it. In terms of what I said in the last video, there have been some changes, I think, from the draft that I produced today. The big talking point was the whole Cancelo situation and everything. But I don't know how I feel about the wild card, unfortunately, because we've had a relatively good run here. We've had about so many green arrows, such a good game week, and now we're using the wild card. So hopefully it doesn't ruin things for us going forward. And maybe it's going to be the change. Maybe now Son and Kane are going to come back and absolutely destroy teams, and then we're going to be able to jump on them. Or maybe they're just going to carry on not playing well, and then we're going to be down in the dumps with a lovely red arrow. So I don't know how many of you are wildcarding, but if you are wildcarding, just remember you might have a different team value to me, and that's what I wanted to talk about firstly. If you have more team value, just upgrade a player. Some of my mates had a similar draft to me, but then they simply just upgraded one of their defenders to Robertson or Trent. I would do that if you can. I would just take my kind of template draft and just upgrade it to whatever budget you have. If you can't afford it, just simply downgrade to cheap alternatives. So the transfers that I have made with the whole wildcard draft situation, these are them. I did make a couple of changes for price rises. A couple of people were confused because they were like, why am I posting a draft with price rises when this is different to the draft I put in the video? That's just because I was writing the price rises. I have players like Madison here who are probably not going to be in the final draft, but that was just playing the price rises and going up and down. So Martinez did rise in price last night, so we can sell him for 0.1 extra, which is always greatly appreciated on a wild card. So the changes that I've made is not many changes in terms of the defense. Cancelo is going to be going out. The reason being I don't want Cancelo is I just thought about it. So for the next two, he's definitely going to start. So Everton, Chelsea, if you want him for those two, keep him because he's going to play for those. But then in game week 19, I don't know if he's going to be starting because I think Kyle Walker's going to be back then from his whole illness. And I can't have a guy in my bench boost that I'm not certain is going to start. And that's why, unfortunately, I'm going to take Cancelo out. Don't want to transfer him out later on with a hit or something like that. So Cancelo's going to be out. Madison and Gieser's out. Those were two who are just here for price rises. Calvert-Lewin's out. And then Kane I did for Brewster. A lot of people were asking me why I have Brewster. So don't worry, I'm not going to have Brewster in my team. So currently, the defensive kind of goalkeeper situation is I'm going to go for Fabianski in goal. It's just that it's that double game week that they have, and you'll see later on. So don't think of this draft from bottom up. Think of it from up to the bottom, because I didn't bring in Fabianski from the start. I just saw that I had some extra value, extra budget in the bank, so then I upgraded McCarthy to him. And also talking about McCarthy, I just didn't want those Southampton fixtures. So when to be honest, I didn't really look at the Southampton fixtures. When I looked at them, I was a little bit distraught. There's not much green in there, as you can see. A lot of red, a lot of grey. So I'm not really favouring those Southampton fixtures, but I still am willing to keep Kyle Walker-Peters. I have a bit of value tied up in him, so from an attacking point of view, still could get forward. I know he's not the most attacking defender, but then to bring in for Cancelo, we're going to go for Soufal. Let me just find him here. He's probably a little bit down. Just to double up on that West Ham defense, I'm probably going to bench them for most of game week 16 and 17 because I need to kind of have a play on my bench, and then I'll just have them on the bench for the bench boost. So I'm willing to double up on that West Ham defense because of these lovely fixtures. And then going into the midfield, not many changes. You know who we're going to be bringing in. We're going to be bringing in Heung-min Son. Looking to captain him, not this game week, but next game week against Leeds. I think it's going to be a good performance for him. And then finally, we're going for, we're going for Souček. So that was the guy that I don't have in my squad yet. So Souček's going to come in, just a nice cheap midfielder enabler kind of. And then the final position for the forwards is going to be Che Adams. So I know I've spoken about those Southampton fixtures not being that great. But I still think that Southampton are looking solid. Okay, I must just take out McCarthy. My bad. My bad, yeah, guys. Apologies. I can still afford this. Don't worry. It's just going to be Johnston instead. So I made two goalkeeper situations. And you can see money remaining 0.0. So that's basically what you want. That means it's the perfect draft and you're guaranteed to get 200 points in your bench boost whenever you have 0.0 left in the bank. That's just how FPL works. But this is the latest draft that I have come up against. The one thing that I am contemplating is Fabianski and Soufal out for Pope and then Balbuena. So if I take those two out, I can afford those two. But I just don't know if Soufal and Fabianski in the long run, because just remember, my planned transfers are going to be Kane out for Vardy, and then Son to probably Rashford come game week 19. So I'll have to take an additional hit then to take Pope out for Fabianski if I do bring him in. But Pope has lovely fixtures for the next two. Sheffield United, Fulham, those look great. But I just don't know if it's going to be worth having Balbuena in the double then instead of Soufal. The collector with a super chat saying last week's suggestion of Kyle Walker-Peters over Dallas helped. I'm glad it helped. Didn't Dallas go on and score? I might be... So he got 6 points versus 8. So I might have been a little bit fortunate in that one, the collector, but I do appreciate it. So G-Ball saying, is this the final team? As far as I know, I kind of am expecting Jamie Vardy to be benched tonight. So if you do have him, I would just play him, expect the best, but I just don't know about that injury that he's been carrying. So I'll be happy if he's benched because then he's going to be raring to go for the next one, and that's where I want to bring him in. But if you do own him, obviously you don't want him to be benched. But that's why I'm not going for Vardy yet. If Vardy was kind of guaranteed to start tonight, then it would be tempting because then I have a little bit more budget to play with, and I might have looked for a way to bring in Sadio Mane. I really like Sadio Mane, but unfortunately, I don't have the budget for it. So if you guys can afford Trent, Robbo, Mane in game week 19, I would look at those kind of players because from a differential aspect, Mane is looking just so good. Emma Sif saying downgrade Kyle Walker-Peters. So if you can't afford this draft, then I probably would downgrade Kyle Walker-Peters. Or the other alternative would be take Fabianski out, bring McCarthy back in, and then instead of Kyle Walker-Peters, maybe go for Balbuena. That could be an alternative. So it's if you can't afford this, just look at the combinations here. Maybe you don't want Dallas, you can have Meslier, and then just rotate, if you know what I'm saying. Ben Johnson instead of Soufal. So I'm not going for Ben Johnson because it almost seems like a trap on a wildcard for me. I know that in the 5 at the back system, he might be guaranteed to start, but other game weeks in the future, if they play a 4 at the back, I don't think he's going to be starting in that one. Because just remember, Cresswell played at that in the 3 at the back, and usually he plays as a fullback. Martial and Rashford. So with Martial, my only concern is Cavani. So if you've noticed when Cavani's come on, he's actually looked pretty good. And I just wonder, maybe one of these game weeks, Cavani's going to start instead of maybe Martial. Maybe in these hectic fixtures that we have, maybe he needs a rest or something like that. Maybe Martial's brought to the wing. That could also be an alternative for that lineup. I'm not really that comfortable with Martial. I would prefer Rashford because Rashford's very versatile, can play in a lot of positions, and I don't think they would bench him. So as long as he's not injured, he should be fine. And then in terms of the captaincy, so I'm not going to confirm this team yet. I'm going to wait a bit so that you guys can just see it, and then I'll go into the exact pick team lineup. I'll be going for Salah captain then. So I'm pretty comfortable with the Salah captain. You can go all out and put all your eggs in one basket for Spurs because we have Son and Kane. So obviously we expect him to do well. But I just have a little bit of concern there against that Fulham defense. I don't know why. It's just a little bit of a weird feeling. So no Liverpool defense. So no Liverpool fans, unfortunately. And the reason for that, I covered that briefly on my Twitter account where I just posted some thoughts that I've been experiencing over this wildcard period. When Matip went off last night, I just don't really trust Williams or Phillips at that centre-back position. They're just super slow. I feel like maybe some other teams could... that's the thing, is the teams actually have to attack them. But you saw when West Brom didn't park the bus anymore and attack Liverpool, they actually were a little bit vulnerable at the back there, and I just worry about it a little bit. But that being said, if I could afford maybe Soufal or Justin to Robertson, I would have done that move. So I'm not talking you out of it. This is just my explaining why I haven't gone and maybe sacrificed a Son or a Kane for a Liverpool defender. That's just my thinking behind it. But if you can have this exact striking pair or striking players, then just go for Robertson if you can afford them. Because I still think they have good fixtures. And the thing with Robertson is, I mean, the ceiling is just so high with those Liverpool fullbacks. I would go for Robertson, not Trent, though, because if you didn't watch the Liverpool game, Trent played a very bad game, basically. Robertson looked a lot better. West Ham means you can't get Antonio. So I'm not too interested in Antonio because I would be a little bit scared in a double game week. If he starts the first game and then he gets injured in that one and then he misses the second one. I don't know if you guys remember last year when it was Mane and Salah on the double game week, and I went for the Salah captain, other people went Mane captain, and then Mane got injured in the first fixture, about 20 minutes gone, and then he didn't play the second game. So a lot of people were irritated at that, and I just don't want the same situation with Antonio. He's just too fragile at the moment, so I wouldn't even take the punt probably, even if he was fit right now. Optimus Prime saying, your opinion about Saka/Arsenal have amazing 4 next fixtures, and if Antonio is ready for Game Week 19, I'll use him. No check for 3 players. So my whole thing with Arsenal is I'm not really targeting teams that don't have a double right now because I am on a wild card. Maybe if you're not on a wild card or you're prepared to wild card in 19 or free hitting in 19, then you could look at Arsenal. I just don't know if one fixture kind of brings my confidence back in that side because they were on a very bad run of form. So I don't know if I would go, but maybe if you're an Arsenal fan and that brings you enjoyment to watch them with the FPL option, then you could go for it. Whom to be in the final 11? Martinez/McCarthy, Ward-Prowse and Walker-Peters slash Sufal and Souček. So I don't really mind benching the West Ham options this week. So I probably would play your Southampton options in that case. So maybe I would probably bench Martinez, play McCarthy, have Ward-Prowse and Walker-Peters instead of Sufal and Souček. Southampton are a good side. And I think against West Ham, I think that they will get the win there. That's why I'm perfectly fine with benching my West Ham options, except for maybe Fabianski, because I think Johnston might have a hard time against Leeds. Should I start Wilson? So Wilson's an interesting option there. I think I would only start Wilson if one of your bench players doesn't have a good fixture. So for example, if you have Charlie Taylor, Burnley face Sheffield United, then play Taylor because that's a very good fixture and it's almost a guaranteed kind of return on points. Whereas with Newcastle, I know that he was rested, but against Liverpool, you always got to stack your odds against the better sides. And I don't know if he's going to be able to perform that well. But I mean, the Liverpool defense hasn't been great, so I wouldn't be surprised if he got something. Would you trade Kufal for Balbuena? I would only do that if you can't afford it, or maybe I needed money to upgrade someone else. But unfortunately, I'm quite a bit away from Son to Mane, and I'm quite a bit away from like Justin to Robertson. Why have you gone without Liverpool defense? It wasn't a need for me to sacrifice other options. That's what I basically will say. So I don't feel a need to sacrifice Kane or Son for Robertson. I just want to see some surety in that defense before I consider them, because the basis of defensive points are always clean sheets, and I don't know if Liverpool will be keeping them soon with all these injuries that they've been having. I can afford McCarthy in your draft as I got 0.1 million more. So should I, or no other 4.6 keeper? So I like Johnston, to be honest. He doesn't have the best fixtures in the double game week, but the fixtures leading up, I guess I could see some save points out of them. If you can afford McCarthy and you think he's going to do better, I mean, Southampton are a better side than West Brom, but I just am putting a little bit of faith in Sam Allardyce and his defensive tactics, and I think that they could maybe get something out of these games. So that's why I've gone for Johnston. I think out of the 4.5s, he's pretty cheap. Is Aina from Fulham a good pick? So I don't really know much about the player you mentioned, basically because I don't really focus on Fulham that much. So he's a defender here, he's been getting a lot of points, but if you look at their double, and this is why I wasn't really tempted by Areola, that basically looks like a single game week. I mean, that could be a 2-pointer there for a defender. So maybe if you really need it, but at 4.5, surely you can get like a West Ham option or something like that. So I probably wouldn't go for a Fulham defender for that. How much in the bank? I've got 0 in the bank with this one, so cutting it quite close, unfortunately, guys, but that's just how it is. 1.3 left. Any suggestions? So, David, I can't really tell you, like, look at the side and tell you who to get. I can kind of adjust that you won't be able to afford like a Robertson or a Trent. What I would maybe look at doing is if you could downgrade Kane to Vardy next game week with a free transfer, could you maybe get Mane for Son? That's probably what I would do. Mitchell to Spurs player, as long as you prepared for the double, then a Mitchell to Spurs option's good. They've got some nice fixtures coming up. From a defensive point of view, Spurs have looked quite solid, so that should be quite good. Boss James is a good option for game week 19. So with James, I wouldn't be against having him, but I'm just a little bit skeptical about the whole starting continuous games quite quickly because of this whole knee injury that he's had. So I think his minutes might be managed. And if you have someone like Azpilicueta and it's an easier fixture, then I mean, I think that he might get rotated in that one. So in that Fulham game, I can honestly see maybe Azpilicueta starting that game because they need Reece James for Leicester or something. So that's why I haven't gone for him. I couldn't afford him with this draft anyway, but if I downgraded Fabianski, I could. I think that as I said, I just don't know about that whole injury situation with him. Which one out of Taylor, Cresswell, and Kyle Walker-Peters to play? I probably would go for Taylor in that case. Upgrade Adams to Tammy if you had the money. Just be prepared to have the occasional resting of Tammy because Giroud was on good form. So as long as you're prepared for that, you should be fine. Vincent saying, should I start Chilwell with Kufal on the bench, thinking of bringing in Tarkowski for a hit? So I would start Chilwell if you have him just because he's so much money. So you don't really want to have that much money on your bench. But no, like obviously if they have a very bad fixture and you don't think they're going to do well, then you could go for that. What's the final squad looking like? So I'll probably update the squad in about 5 minutes time, but it's basically going to be Kufal on the bench, probably going to be Walker-Peters on the bench as well, and then I'll probably bench Souček as well. So that's basically, it's going to be these three on the bench, and then I'll start Fabianski instead of Johnston. Should I wildcard in game week 19, the second one? I'm a little bit against using the wildcard that early, your second wildcard in like game week 19. I would try and hold it as long as possible because remember, there are going to be more blanks, there are going to be more doubles towards the end of the season. So that's what you kind of want to go for. Salah captain. Souček or Bowen on a wildcard, money isn't an issue. I would have said Bowen before this week, but I think he got subbed quite early, which worries me. I would probably just go for Souček because I think he's going to start most game weeks, and I think that you could use that money to potentially get some upgrades in other departments. How's going to be your team at game week 19? What's your plan? So I'm going to take Kane out for Vardy probably next game week because remember I have to use a transfer before game week 17 because otherwise I lose a transfer for the free hit. So I'll be free hitting in game week 18. So one transfer before game week 17, probably Kane to Vardy. I'm going to assess that situation tonight. And then before game week 19, I probably will do Son to someone like Rashford. I can't afford Dallas. Can I bring in... what I would do is I would maybe go for Ayling then. If you can afford Ayling, then go for him. Rafinha or Harrison, there's not much between those two. It's basically a 50-50. I think the stats are also looking quite similar. I just prefer Rafinha. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he has a foreign name or something. But I had him in FIFA 20 as like a foot champions card. He had like an objective card. So maybe that's why I favor him. Do I bring in Dallas or Kufal for Lamptey? I would bring in Kufal probably because I trust the West Ham defense a little bit more. 0.2 left with your wildcard squad. Would you upgrade or should I just keep it in the back? Charles, I don't think there's going to be much you can do with 0.2, so I would probably just keep it. What is your ideal wildcard draft if you have the money? So this is quite a hard question because when you're saying ideal, I don't know how much the budget's going to be, but probably what I would have said is if I had the money to either afford Mane in game week 19, so with those transfers, Kane to Vardy, Son to Mane, if I could afford that move, that's probably what I would do, or I would have Robertson in defense. So if you can afford Robertson, I definitely would get him instead of one of these options that I have. Mane / Martial or Vardy / Rashford for game week 19. I probably would go Vardy and Rashford just because you kind of differentiating your teams a little bit. So you're not kind of relying on Liverpool and United only. You're then incorporating Leicester as well, who could do well. Jay Cartwright saying, hey, David, I need to save 0.5. Can you suggest a downgrade? A simple downgrade, just go Fabianski to whoever you can afford, McCarthy or just another 4.6 kind of goalkeeper, Meslier or whatever. That's basically what I would do. Walker-Peters or Balbuena. If you're going to be able to bench them, I probably would say Balbuena. But Walker-Peters, if you have money in him, just rather keep him. Because, I mean, if he's going to be on the bench anyway, you don't have to do it. Can I see your final lineup? I will do it in about a minute. About 20 past, I'll formulate everything for you guys. Start DCL, Watkins, or Rafinha. I would probably go for... It's a tough situation because I think DCL is more of a talisman and Watkins as well, but Rafinha has that lovely fixture that I would go for. But I think if you still own DCL, I think you might just have to play him because Everton have been playing quite well against the bigger opposition. Missing Lamptey against Aubameyang, maybe he could be a good differential captain for this week. So if you have Aubameyang still, I mean, that's probably quite a crazy situation to be in. I don't think many people own Aubameyang, so definitely, if you want to go for that captaincy, you can. I think most people will just go for Salah or maybe one of the Spurs assets. But if you want to go for Aubameyang, I'm not going to tell you no. David saying, I think I downgraded Fabianski to McCarthy and Kufal to Balbuena, so I can now afford Mane and Vardy. So that's great. That's probably the moves that I would do as well. No worries, Jay Cartwright. Start Kufal or Suchek. I always favor the attacker, so I would go for Suchek Mohammed. Rafinha or Saka, I would go for Rafinha. Twisted with a super chat saying Mahrez and DCL to Son and Adam/Wood for a -4. I'm not really opposed to those moves, especially if you're trying to prepare for the double with Adams. And Son has some good fixtures. So maybe if you want to captain Son this game week or next game week, 100% go for that -4. So yeah, let me do the final team here, guys. So I'm going to be locking in this lineup. Before I do it, do you think I should make any changes? No one has been spamming bad team delete FPL accounts. So I'm pretty happy. Thank you, chat, for being kind to this. So I don't think there's any changes that I would make. Nothing really that's standing out that you guys would do, because that would probably help a little bit. Vardy to play. To be honest, everything's kind of telling me that Vardy's going to be benched tonight. So I probably would think that. I mean, it's kind of logical for him to be benched, because if you saw in my tweet, he hasn't started a Europa League game since early on in the season, and Ian Nacho's probably played every game. Merry Christmas, man. Thanks, the flashiest gamer. I appreciate it. You too, buddy. Taylor or Sufal to start. I would go for Taylor. Madison, thoughts? Ask Keanu. I mean, if Vardy's a good option, then Madison's a good option as well. I just favor Vardy as he's more of a kind of assured points returner, if you know what I'm saying. But Madison, if you can fit him in, then he's also quite good. He rose in price last night, so I did have him in my squad. As an engineer, how do you deal with electricity outages? So unfortunately, I'm not an electrical engineer, but so I can't really deal with that. Jamie's saying I'll delete account. Maybe if Game Week 16 doesn't go well. So I don't really see many people having any problems with it. Cancelo out and Dallas in. If you're not on a wild card, then I probably wouldn't do that move. But if you are, then I think you might as well just go for it. Okay, so I'm going to make the transfers here. We're going to go for some big transfers here. It would have been a big hit, but I'm going to be confirming those. And then to pick the team. So I'm going to go for Fabianski against Southampton, because I know it's not the best fixture in the world, but I kind of just have to go for it. I'm going to take Kufal out. I'm going to put Taylor on. I'll probably play Kyle Walker-Peters as my first sub. I just think that maybe he'll do well, and then I'll play Suchek there. I mean, this could be an absolute disaster here with the whole benching situation. I will make Kane my vice captain, because I think that maybe he's a better shot against Fulham than Son. But Salah's going to be my captain this week. So I don't think the wild card looks that bad. I've got a lot of anxiety about it because of how well we were doing previously, and unfortunately it was expiring, so we had to go for it. Start Meslier or McCarthy. I would go for Meslier. Andy's saying bench DCL. So this is a tough spot to be in. I think, like the question previously, because if you have a player like Taylor on your bench that has Sheffield United, I would be really tempted to bench DCL in that case. In other fantasy games that I play, I have benched DCL because I had Taylor on my bench. So it's a tough fixture. Any team against Man City is going to struggle. But the thing is, Everton have done really well against the better opposition. No Liverpool players, asked Josh. Unfortunately, no. So I'm going to have to watch the Liverpool games now behind my couch, because Robertson has been getting forward so much. But unfortunately, I just can't fit them in. I just don't have the budget. If you do have the budget, then go for it. Glenn Alexander saying no Robertson in your wild card. Yeah, Glenn, unfortunately, I can't afford him. Otherwise, I would have. If you can afford him, go Justin to Robertson. That's perfectly fine in my opinion. Meslier or McCarthy long term. It's a tough spot to be in because Meslier has that double. So I know it is in the short term, but long term, I would go for Meslier probably. But McCarthy, if you want to have a goalkeeper that you're going to keep till game week 38, then go for McCarthy. But otherwise, probably Meslier is better for the short term / medium term. No Cancelo or no Robertson. No, I'm preparing for the double game week, so I couldn't fit Robertson in. And Cancelo, I was just a little bit worried about game week 19's benching. Sorry, just joined Salah or Son captain. I would probably go for Salah captain. That's just my kind of thinking behind it. It might be because I have Son and Kane, so I've really kind of doubled up on that attack. Info on Vardy being benched. Unfortunately, no info. Brendan Rodgers said that he's going to assess the players and see if they're going to be benched. But knowing Vardy, he's going to want to play, but I don't know if he's going to be able to. I would kind of, if you have him, play him, but if you don't, just don't bring him in. It's basically one of those situations. Mahrez and James to start. So apparently James might be benched today. That was just kind of from a Twitter account that potentially was right, that maybe, if you're talking about Reece James, obviously, but if you're talking about James, then maybe James will start. Will you ever play Johnston? I probably will only play Johnston in the double for the bench boost, because if you look at the fixtures after the kind of double, I'm not going to be starting against Man City. Maybe against Fulham and Sheffield United, I could look at that. It all depends on how West Bromwich Albion are setting up. If defensively they look assured, then I don't really have a problem starting him. Sharisha saying, how much in the bank? I've got 0 in the bank. Glenn saying 5-minute warning. That is true. So please, guys, get those transfers in. If you're on Wildcard, get those Wildcards in. Drawing saying, where would Cresswell or Taylor to start? I would probably be leaning more towards Taylor. I just think that fixture's too good. I don't have Bamford yet. Worth buying him. He got a price rise last night. So 100% get Bamford. If it wasn't the upcoming double that kind of tempted you, it's just the form that Leeds are in. So I think Bamford's almost essential to have right now. You haven't missed out on the price rises. Don't worry. For his price and his performance, he's still worth the money. Johnston or Areola to start. I would probably go for Johnston just because I think he's going to make more saves. With your lineup, I have 0.7 in the bank, so that's true. A lot of people have different team values. That's what I was saying. So if you can upgrade another position, then maybe go for it. Reasons for Che Adams: when Ings is not in the squad, he does not perform well. So there are other options that I could go for, but I just was going to stick with a team that is performing relatively well. And I didn't want to kind of use a transfer. So if I went for someone like Wood, then maybe I have to use a transfer before Game Week 19. Their next two fixtures are good, so you can still go for Wood. But I just thought Che Adams, not the worst in the world. 6 million, not many expectations there. Hopefully he just gets a goal or two. Why Aguero's not starting? So apparently he still had a little bit of a knee injury in the last game. Otherwise he would have started. So if he has recovered from that, then he could start. But I don't know if I'd be taking a punt on Aguero right now. Play Souček or Kyle Walker-Peters. I would go for Souček. I think I just always prefer the attacker. I know he's kind of a CDM midfielder, but I always kind of favor the attack in that case. Ailing instead of Dallas, if I don't have the funds, 100% Tiesmeister, go for that. That's one of the positions that I would recommend you doing. It's a small downgrade in my opinion, a bit of a sideways move, but if you don't have the money, you might as well. Mate has a grade 3 groin strain injury, out for 3 to 4 months. Vincent, who are you talking about there? Sorry, I just missed that. Don't worry, Jamie. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your week too, buddy. Ruben Diaz, good shot to go for. I know you just kind of put his name in chat, so I don't know what you're talking about, but he is a good player. Play Dallas or Rafinha. I would be tempted to go. That's a hard one because Dallas plays so forward. I almost would be tempted to play Dallas in that case. Whenever someone mentions Dallas, my defender versus attack kind of theology kind of goes out the window. Make transfer time is running out. So I have made the transfers. I'll even refresh it to prove that this has been my transfers. Wildcard active there at the bottom, you can see. And these are the transfers that I have done. So this is basically the finalized team for my wildcard. So if you guys have to go, I know there's 2 minutes left. Maybe you have to leave quickly. This will be the finalized team, so don't worry. Oh yes. So Vincent's talking about Matip. So unfortunately that is true then. I think that's going to hinder the Liverpool defense. I just don't know about those youngsters at centre back. Mane and Salah in a wildcard team, asked Nico. So my kind of perfect wildcard team would be to have Son for the next 2 game weeks, and then before game week 19 take Son to Mane. That would be my perfect strategy, Nico. So that's what I would go for. Bench boosting in game week 19. Yes, I am, Glenn. That's why I've kind of gone for a little bit of a stacked bench, although it still will be quite cheap. MacDaddy saying Vardy will be rested and won't play. So that's kind of my thinking as well. But we never kind of know with Jamie Vardy. He might pop 4 Red Bulls and then be ready to go. Or injuries kind of go out the window with him. So maybe he does play. Sleeker saying I've kept Ruben Diaz. I probably would have as well if I had Diaz in my team, but I had Cancelo, and I'm just a little bit worried about some rotation around that double game week. There's going to be no rotation from now till game week 18, but after that maybe. Yes, 1 minute to go for the deadline. So if you are going to leave the stream, you might as well just drop a like on before you. Just an extra click there. Defender to replace Kyle Walker-Peters, that's 4.5. I think that Stevens from Southampton is also cheaper than that. Otherwise, you can also look at maybe Ailing. It is unfortunately time's up. Mika, I have 0 in the bank here. So I can't afford any upgrades if I need to do them. But sometimes having 0 in the bank is kind of a nice little fitting end to a wild card. Maybe shows that you've made some good decisions there and utilized your money well. But unfortunately, guys, the deadline has passed. So I'm hoping that all of you, I mean, if you were in the stream, you should have had your transfers and your captaincy done. First time listener, great stream, like and subscribe. I really do appreciate that. So thanks for dropping by. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. I always try to make these live streams as enjoyable as possible. I think this live stream was better because it's a little bit earlier, so I might not be as tired as I usually am. But we've had some hectic video schedule recently, so I'm probably going to take a couple of days off before reflecting on Gameweek 17. But hopefully Gameweek 16 is absolutely sensational, and all of you guys do get green arrows, and the wild card actually does pay off. Thanks for dropping by. I really do appreciate the support on the videos and the live streams recently. You guys have been absolutely sensational. But I'm going to be signing off. This has been Davey FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.